you got to really take a look at, like your why. It's just like, because if you don't, it will catch up to you. And when it catches up to you, a lot of people don't do anything until they're in a crisis. And when they're in a crisis, it's usually too late.
Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast, brought to you by A Advanced Services and Fuse Networks. My name is Galen.
I'm Joe.
We're coming at you from the underbelly of the Creative Block Studios in Seattle, Washington. So, Joe, for our new listeners and viewers tuning in for the first time, how did we start our podcast journey?
Sure. So it first started out as a private Facebook group page, and the purpose was to bring business owners together to kind of just talk and communicate and share tips and ask questions, do some brainstorming. Because we're a marketing agency, we get asked a lot of questions outside of just marketing. So selfishly for us, we wanted to bring on different guests to talk about all different topics that are related to business and entrepreneurship.
Right. So to be the best business person, you always have to be healthy too, right, Joe?
Yep.
So today we're happy to have Dr. Pat Boulogne on as our guest today.
Thank you.
Today's topic will be the 5 pillars of health to help you run your business. But before we get started, let's get to know Dr. Pat a little bit more. So Dr. Pat, we ask a couple questions. And Joe, do you mind asking the first one, please?
Yeah. So what are some early lessons learned as an entrepreneur?
Oh, cash is king. My, when I was 4 and 5 years old, I used to have a lemonade stand, and I was telling somebody the story the other day, and I said I used to run out of lemonade almost every day that I had my lemonade stand, because I'd get the people who were going to work and to get the buses
hmm
going into Detroit, 'cause I'm originally from Michigan, and I'd get the people coming back, and so they would buy their 3-cent lemonade on the way going, and then they would buy their 3-cent lemonade on the way coming back, and I don't even remember what happened to all my money. I think my mother stole it. But, you know, I always, it's just like that was a cash deal. And people would, what they do is I asked 3 cents, and I did it for a reason, because my father was asking me how much I wanted to charge. And I said, well, 5 cents. He said, well, if you charge 3 cents and they don't have 5 cents, they're going to give you 10 cents. And then they did, and then some people didn't come back that way, or I wasn't there when they got on the way coming back, and they never said you owe me 7 cents. But that's, I remember I did that for 2 summers in a row, and it was kind of like that first, learning like how to deal with people. um and that, so I think that that's like, one of those first entrepreneurial lessons, and my attorney always says cash is king. We're making it like for doing a settlement, because it's in chiropractic, you would do, if you had like a personal injury case, you would write a script, and then they would go back and forth and they would look at some way to settle that. So like that one little thing that I did when I was like 4 or 5 years old has stuck with me for like a long time. And I think back to that when someone says, do you want me to? And I go, cash is king. I can make a better deal that way and then get on with my life.
Awesome. Awesome. So, well, you started your entrepreneurial journey very young. So,
Mhm.
in that time till now, what has been the best piece of advice that you've been given?
Stay true to yourself.
Mm.
There's a lot of people who want to pull you, and push you off the precipice, and a lot of times when I first came on LinkedIn, I was doing market research, because I wanted to
hmm
see, for executives, I wanted to find out, if executives were open to talking about, their health in a group or not. But I had a lot of people who were my colleagues, in the same kind of related industry, calling me up, and because they were curious about what I was doing. And so I didn't tell them. I was just doing market research. What do you do? And they thought we were just talking about their health, but it was pretty evident. Um, so, and also, like, test the water.
hmm
Like, you don't know how deep the water is that you're swimming in until you either have a depth finder, or someone tells you, or or you just jump in and figure out you're going to make it to the first ledge so you could take a break. So I like that analogy of that one.
Awesome.
But my favorite question, why is marketing important?
It's crucial. I will tell you just a short story to prove that point. A chiropractor was going to open his practice up in Massachusetts, and he hired me to open the practice up because I had years of experience. I bought a practice that was underserved, and I bought it for $20,000, and I sold it in just below the mid six digits when I sold it
Hmm.
10 years later. So he wanted me to go open this practice for him, and he wanted me to learn software. He wanted me to learn how to use the software. I said, "This is not how you're going to make money." It kind of goes for me, and especially because software and me never get along. But I said to him, I go, "You really need to like, what are you doing for marketing?" And he was relying on what he did for his office that was already established for 10 years. And I said, I'm new girl on the block. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows your office, and I go, it'd be more valuable for me to find, or for you guys to find events for me to go shake hands with, say, hey, blah, 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 come on to my office. I said, love to, do a spinal screening for you and your children for free. Come on in, see what it looks like. If you like it, then you sign up. And if you don't, you don't. Um,
Hmm.
but that was the thing, that was his biggest mistake is not investing enough money into marketing because he was relying on Facebook ads at that time. And
So
so
Yeah.
for
you have,
your business,
it's
oh,
essential.
just so Dr. Pat, for your business, what has been the best marketing that you've done to grow your business?
Networking.
Okay.
And shake and like in person shaking hands and not being afraid to ask people for a referral. Because I think a lot of
Hmm.
times we have this intimidation about, to being asked, to ask somebody for a referral. When I was in my office in active practice, this always worked really well. I don't have I'll just use my credit card. um, but I would give somebody my card with my name on it, and I would initial their initials on the card. And I would say to them, I go, tell me, I said, you're doing pretty well, right? I said, what week are we on? And they go, oh, the 10th week or something like that, or the eighth week, or, I've been seeing you forever because I had a lot of maintenance patients. And I said, I have space for 10 people. I go this month coming up. And I said, because I always see new patients every week, but I would like to hit a new goal. And I go, can I rely on you to actually, I go, give these cards out to people, that your friends, your family, people who know, like, and trust you. This is back in the 90s. I was saying that stuff. And they would say, sure. And then I'd give them the card and then they would reach out and they would go to grab it. And then I wouldn't let it go. And I looked them right in the eyes. I promise, and when they said yes, I let go of the card. And then I gave it to them, and I always had at least a minimum of 10, 20 new patients, 30 patients in a month, so I was, and because I got people, well, they're going to go away someplace. So I wanted them, I go, you need to replace your place or you need to stay here. So
Right. Oh, that's
Nice.
amazing. Oh,
that,
before we
and
move
that,
forward,
and that worked.
the network worked. Um, I forgot to do something, so I'll give it a chance to do now. I made a mistake, guys. But Dr. Pat, could you introduce yourself to our audience, please?
Oh my God, we forgot that most important
Yes, I
part of
forgot
it.
that. It's
Holy
I'm a
gee.
bad podcast host. I'm sorry. So
Oh my God, my name is Dr. Pat Boulogne, and I have a list of, training for, in health and wellness and mindset, starting with, my doctor of chiropractic, acupuncture, functional medicine, lifestyle medicine. I have certification in public speaking, in helping people and sports medicine. I'm credentialed to work Olympics and elite athletes. Uh, so, I have my father always thought I was going to go to school forever. He was, and I thought, oh, I don't think so. Once I'm done with college, I'm done. That didn't work out so well. And I continued on. So, but I'm a lifelong learner. I love to see people do well and thrive and prosper. And nothing gives me more satisfaction than people to reach and obtain their greatest goals in less time, whether it's physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, social, or even financial. And that I was like, let's, all rising tides, isn't like JFK's, quotes, all rising tides lift all boats, right? So I'm looking to make sure that people's boats that I'm dealing with don't have any holes in them.
awesome. Well, normally we ask our guests this for our A Advanced Services Pump You Up Quote of the Day, but I'm going to put you on the spot now, if you don't mind. What's your favorite motivational quote that kind of gets you going or means a lot to you? Is there one for you?
Well, when I'm looking at motivational quotes, I kind of just gave one, but I will tell you, I always thought, that in order for me to excel, if I was going to tell someone about mindsets, superior wellness initiatives, and the such, I had to walk the walk and talk the talk. I had to be who I want somebody else to be, so that
Hmm.
you're leading by example.
Yeah.
And it's not say like, and then running outside smoking a cigarette or something like that. That wouldn't work. Um, and so that piece of like, be the change you want to be, those kind of quotes have always like stuck with me. Um, and I always evaluate when someone's doing a program or they ask me to evaluate a program. I'm always looking at that key factor, because if they're not doing, like, why would you take advice from somebody, or, big a good example, why would you take advice from on dating, for instance, when the person, who is giving you the advice has, been divorced a lot, or they don't, and are they're serial daters? Like, why would you do
Hmm.
that?
Right.
Right. And it's just like John Gray was married 5 times, and so was Barbara DeAngelis, and they were both married to each other. They're much better daters than they are, being
Spouses.
involved with each other and spouses to each other.
Awesome.
So let's get into the topic. Our Fuse Network kind of did you know segment. So the topic of today's podcast is the 5 pillars of health to help
Hmm.
you run your business. So there are 5 different ones. Can we just go over them and briefly kind of cover them and why they
Hmm.
are important? And I guess I'll read each one to cue you and tell us your thoughts. So this first pillar, proper diet and nutrition, seems something so common, but obviously Americans have a lot of health eating issues. And
Well,
um,
we
what
also have
what
we have lack of
what can you
quality of food.
what can you say about that then, as it applies to helping you run a business, the diet and
Well,
nutrition part?
if you want to think well, feel well, and be well, then you need to be able to feed yourself the foods that you need in order to do that. So people who have ADD or short memory loss and things like that, a lot of them have a tendency to eat sugar. And sugar is causes inflammation. There's a direct causal relationship with that. So if you want to think well and be on your game, you have to have a pristine diet.
So is that similar to like we just watched the Olympics, like Olympic athletes? I mean, not everyone thinks of themselves as an athlete, but you see athletes who really take better care of their bodies in order for them to excel. Should business people kind of mimic a version of that kind of mindset then?
Oh, absolutely. When I was working, and I was seeing 70 patients a day, people asked me how I did it. And I said, I think good thoughts, I do good deeds, and I eat incredibly well. I eat clean. And so if and I put foods together in a combination that I knew when they were actually fuel for my body to maintain and sustain a certain level of energy.
So, what are some of those types of foods then that a person would put in their body to give them the fuel to last throughout the day?
I would tell people to avoid pasta, rice, and bread, and in straight sugars. I mean, like candy, things that, and like fruits that are high in glycemic index, like bananas, and like the other one is pineapple.
Hmm.
Hmm,
They're good for you. They're just not good for you all the time.
right.
And you can get more out of your day if you eat a protein with a vegetable, and a little drizzle of oil, and maybe some
Hmm.
vinegar on it than you can if you eat sugar. Sugar will make you crash like over and over again. Plus, it's not good for your gut. I mean, if you injure your gut, then you're going to have a thing called leaky gut. And then when you eat, it's not just one tube going from here to the, out into the toilet. It's convoluted and it's one cell layer. And when that one cell layer gets damaged, then you have leakage of foods in and absorbed in your bloodstream even before they're supposed to be absorbed in your bloodstream. So you might be supposed to absorb something later on in your tract and your intestinal tract like protein, but you're absorbing
Hmm.
it sooner, so you now have an allergy.
Hmm.
And then your liver's got to handle it, and then your liver gets overwhelmed. And when your liver gets overwhelmed in trying to process all the things in the environment, and it can't do it anymore, it stores them in blood, brain, bone, and fat. So, and every fat cell is an endocrine organ. So it's convoluted, but it's like that. That's a key component.
Joe, do you want to read the
Next
next one?
one. Yeah. Proper exercise. What is proper
Proper,
exercise?
if you don't move, you're going to die. So, I mean, like one of my patients, my second patient ever, which we all called Grandma, she was 92. She said to me, I said, "What do you do for exercise?" And she said, "Oh, Dr. Pat." She was from Georgia. "Oh, Dr. Pat." She said, "I move every day." I said, "What do you do?" And she goes, "I take my Dixie cup and I go out and I water my garden." I said, "How many plants do you have?" She said, 150.
Hmm.
I thought, that's a lot of motion. And she, and she's up and she was, she did really, really for 92, her big, she was having a little neck pain and because she
Hmm.
wanted to I'll never forget her. She is lovely. And, because she wanted to knit an Afghan for the new one coming in the family.
Yeah.
And so that was her goal to do that, and she achieved that. And she was a very special person. But people have got to move, and a lot of people are so stationary. It's just like I like the idea when I was working, I was always on my feet and I was pivoting on my feet a lot because I had sometimes up to 75 people in a day that I was seeing, so I had to keep my head and my thoughts really straight and know what I was doing and when I was doing and why I was doing it. And so that piece about moving, I was always really really quite active. So it's just like exercise is key. And also, you can't, just so that since we already talked about a diet, now we're talking about exercise, you can't out exercise a bad diet.
Hmm.
That's
So, what do you tell those people who, during COVID, when they worked from home, and before that, they were stuck at their desks where they did not move, and then post pandemic, still don't move, but they'll wear the smartwatches, pedometers, and track all these things. What do you tell those people who think walking up and down the stairs to your bedroom and to your office is enough movement?
Well, it depends upon how many stairs there are, and it depends upon how many times you do it. Because I can, if I'm working on a project where I'm at right now, I could easily do 3,000 steps, in a morning, because I'd be
Mhm.
downstairs because I get up and take breaks and I move about every like 50, like hour, 90 minutes, something like that. And I'll go down and I'll get tea, I'll get water, and I drink a lot of water. So I drink 50% of my body weight, which is about 70 ounces.
Mhm.
And so it's that part of it, it's just like you got to get up and move because if you don't move, there's so many chronic illnesses and diseases that are related to non-movement. It isn't like, what's it like in if your big why is like, being able to grow up with your family and then see your grandkids, because all of a sudden grandkids come around, people totally change. Their kids can go away and go to school, but when they get grandkids, they're going like, oh my God, I can't tell you how many people like show me their pictures of their grandkids. Their kids, I go, what does your daughter look like? Or what does your son look like? Oh, I don't have a picture of him, but I got a picture of my grandkids, because those are their trophies, that's my legacy, like going on and on. And and I think that the if you got to really take a look at like your why. It's just like because if you don't, it will catch up to you, and when it catches up to you, Most people, a lot of people don't do anything until they're in a crisis. And when they're in a crisis, it's usually too late. And the
Mm.
statistic, by the American Heart Association is that most men, and I would presume now it'd be most women also, who, have a heart attack, don't know that they have a heart condition until they have a heart attack, and many of them die. 75%.
That's a
Wow.
high percentage.
It
This
Uh,
is.
next one, I think, from the next one for me, I think is my favorite. Proper sleep. How much is
Oh,
enough sleep? Because does an entrepreneur who's wearing 8 hats need more sleep than someone who works in an office?
well, it's the quality of sleep that really matters, and whether or not you're like a entrepreneur, you're on your game, you're constantly moving. One of the things that, is to cultivate putting your head in the pillow and sleeping. And if you have a hard time doing that, there's ways to do that so you can relax your mind. So there's a meditation technique and mind control technique called the Silva method. The Silva method first does physical relaxation, then then they do mental relaxation, and then they're in alpha. And when you're in alpha, you can make more money, you can get more things done, you can remember things. There's techniques. And I learned these when I was in chiropractic school, like years ago, but no one said it was the Silva method. And then when he started to get famous again recently, I'm going, oh, I used to do that. That's how I used to do my meditation when I was in school. And so, but it works and it works well. You just want to look at like, what do you want? Like Thomas Edison used to have all his creative ideas in the brainwave of theta. And there's a lot of sound machines that are out now. I mean, someone said to me, like, you're so far ahead of your time for this because I was talking about sound waves and frequency 20 years ago, and that everything is energy. So if everything's energy, then
right.
it affects us. And it's like, even like, the in feng shui, the way that your desk is faced, the way that you sleep, having things underneath your bed, things like that, that might be, that especially like electrical plugs, because they make plugs that help diffuse the electricity from those. And we all know that dirty electricity causes cancer. We know that,
Yep.
and so there's things you got to, like, open the, Google's probably a great place to start to, like, what can I do to block, EMFs, like electromagnetic frequency, that's harmful for me. It's like taking your cell phone. You can't see it on my cell phone here, but on the back underneath here, I have it's called it's a RJ2 or R2J, and it blocks electromagnetic radiation. So when people try to say like, "Oh, your telephone's this," it isn't 100%, but it's much better than just putting it up to your ear, and
Hmm.
trying to fry your brain. And then also, like, in Wi-Fi, if people have a hard time sleeping, well, here's a hot tip for you: turn the Wi-Fi off at night. You don't
Oh,
need it when you're sleeping, right?
Hmm.
And also, it's like, if you have like on one apartment that I was in when I was in Florida, the TV of this person was on the other side. I couldn't hear it, but I knew it was there, and I started getting headaches, and I was trying to figure out what it was. So I asked this guy if he would just, like, babysit this and just turn the TV off, and that when he went to sleep at night. And he promised me that he did do that, and he was gone for a week, and I was watering his plants, so I know the TV was not plugged in. And because I unplugged the whole thing, and that whole week I had no headache. When he came back, he forgot a couple nights, and I'd call him up in the morning and go, "Did you leave your TV plugged in?" And so he goes, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry." And he goes, "I never would have guessed that that would be something that would bother people." But
wow.
if you're sensitive, or if you're aware that of your sensitivities for stuff like that, it can affect, it can be, a health hindrance, that type of thing.
Some people may think we will break the internet when you say you want better sleep, turn your Wi-Fi off. That may shatter some waves in the area. So that's
Oh,
something that we'll definitely share. Joe, you
I
want to read number
definitely.
four?
Okay, let's
Oh,
go.
Okay. Proper mindset and positive mental attitude.
Well, how you get up in the morning is totally a choice. If you want to have a positive attitude, and everything that happens to you from the moment you start your day to the moment you end your day and put your head back on the pillow is all about what you think and how you feel about your life. And
Mhm.
so if you can either see a glass totally empty, when it's totally full, it's just your perception of things. And all it is it's an experience. So the first time I went to Europe, my father's wife gave me great advice. She said, if something happens, just remember it's an experience. It's not going to last forever. And so like when I missed trains and the next train wasn't until 1 o'clock in the morning, I had like, where am I gonna go in the meantime? It's just like I'm in Paris and there's cops like at Gare du Nord, and you don't want to hang out at Gare du Nord, at that time. And also when you're looking at positive mindset, I like to find out from people like what's your best bio and health hack. I ask people that, and people tell me, I'm also so surprised that entrepreneurs and executives who have a certain level of achievement and success in their life tell me that they don't have a biohack. I said, I don't buy it. I just don't believe you, and I don't buy it. Because the first foundational step, when I teach that, is that mindset, a robust mindset and a robust health have got to be the first cornerstone of that. And then when you go up, like you go into marketing, and then you go into like, there's certain steps that go after you get that handled. And then you get like do the next step, like, getting all my licensure. And then you go and you start how I'm going to get out there. They go to you guys, for marketing. And then from the marketing, it's just like you create a strategy that is, it's can't necessarily foolproof, but is pretty strong, saying like if you do this, we know that people when they do X, Y, and Z, they do that. Why would you want to reinvent the wheel? So if your attitude
Mhm.
about that is, you're like, okay, you know what? I'm on board. You tell me what the wheel looks like, and how to drive that Ferrari, and I'll tell you, I can drive a Ferrari, and I said, but you got to know the directions that some Ferraris have brake paddles on the steering wheel and not on the floor. And so,
Right.
and that's an important factor. I drove a Ferrari one time that I didn't know that, and I hit a curb and like wiped out the back panel on the driver's side. I thought the guy was going to kill me. But I'm still here to talk about it. It's those things like, and then when I looked at that, I said, I don't have any money, but I can adjust you for your whole life. It just, because I just got out of school when that happened. But I think that, it's just like everything happens, so if it happens, it happened. Just move on. What can I do to fix it? Like I, can't sleep at night. Well, what is it, just like, what can I do to go to sleep? Okay, what's on my mind? Why is that on my mind? Write it down, give yourself permission, go back to sleep. It's all about that attitude that anything's possible.
And this last one, fitting, you're a chiropractor, but proper posture, biomechanics. Talk to us about the importance of posture.
If you don't have good posture, then you're not going to have good biomechanics. And if you don't have good biomechanics, you're going to have loss of function at some point in time because the brain controls and coordinates all function of the body, and it communicates to the body through the spine. And if you don't have structural stability, there's curves in your spine for a reason. If you go and look at the Stanchion Bridge, that beautiful one that's in Sydney, Australia, or I'm sure there's one out where you guys live. There's Boston has the I can't think of the name of the bridge now, but they have a stanchion bridge. There's curves in it because those curves give you more structural stability. So when
Mhm.
you are sitting, how I'm sitting right now, how you're sitting, your muscles in your body are going to maintain that posture, have got to be reactive. They have to be able to be in position, but you don't know that. If you think about, do you have kids, you guys?
Yes.
Yes, I have
Okay,
three. So
you have three. How about you?
Just one.
Right. So when those babies were born, all they did is move. They kicked their feet. They tried to roll over. You had them on their stomach and they pushed themselves up for their first year of their life. All they did, so that they could walk was exercise. They ate, they slept, they pooped, and they exercise. And your body needs those muscles in being toned so that it can help support your structure even better. A lot of people have very poor posture.
So out of all these five, when you see clients or other business owners, entrepreneurs, what is the number one thing that they're deficient of out of all these five? Is there one glaring weakness of all business owners, entrepreneurs that they don't do?
Well, I ask that question to everybody who I become a new connection with on LinkedIn, what they think is more important, a robust health or a robust mindset. So, it's like the chicken, what came first, the chicken or the egg? If you look at the robust mindset, I mean, it's just like people who struggle with weight loss, people who struggle with their health, people who struggle with sleep, people who aren't motivated to go even for a walk, it's just like, and you ask somebody like, hey, how about taking off like, 20 pounds or something like that, like working on that? How about that for an idea? And then, people say like, oh, I've got to work up to it. That's working on their mindset. That means that they're not ready to do that because if you want to have real lasting results, you have to make a commitment to it. And if you're committed to it, then the other component that has to be there is consistency, and you have to be consistent in doing it. So it's just like I get up in the morning, I literally roll out of bed and plop on the floor, and I do my 150 setups, and I do other floor exercises, for that, and because I'm moving, I'm not walking. And adding that piece to it because I literally do 8 to 10,000 steps just what I'm doing in this like week to get things organized and packed and carry things, and that. So, um, that the most important, I believe, is the mindset. Because if you have your mindset, then you can like, I'm going to be healthy, and I'm going to be, then you go, well, what do I have to do then? And that's when you seek out a trained professional who can help you organize that even faster. Because you can always do everything on your own. There's so many DIYs out there. There's so
Hmm.
many that you can always do it on your own. But I want to get to the finish line. I want targeted results. I want to know like if I do X, Y, and Z, what is it that I have to do? I had a guy who was really overweight and he only lost 4 pounds in like 3 months when I was working with him. Someone goes, God, that was really bad. I go, he didn't do anything I told him to do. It was like an uphill battle. It's just like, I want to do intermittent fasting. Great. This is how to, like, based upon your logistics, this is how to do intermittent fasting for you. How do you want to move forward? And it's just, and I'm coaching, I'm not mentoring. And so, so I'm asking him, I get down to the end, and I find out that he had all these shakes that had all the sugar in them and yeah, all this other stuff. So he cheated almost the whole time. I go, how do you expect to lose weight when you don't participate in your participation?
Yep.
And you're not really committed to it because as soon as you have a bad day, you have a beer. It's not, sometimes you have bad days, do something else, go for a walk, hug a tree. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Makes
Exactly.
it,
I mean,
does it make
it's
sense?
almost
Yep.
yes, it's almost like a New Year's resolution. Everyone starts off with good intentions, then after the first week it drops, and then you're back to where you were. It's the
Yeah,
consistency and staying on
and
track.
especially by
So,
Valentine's, it's all downhill after that, especially if you like, chocolate, which you should only eat 85% and above for, the cacao and chocolate. You shouldn't, if it
Hmm.
has less than 85%, don't even bother buying it. You're wasting your money and you're torturing your body. So,
so if some of our audience want to connect with you, what's the best way to reach and connect with you?
well, they can, if they're on LinkedIn, they can always find me on LinkedIn, and my LinkedIn profile is spelled exactly how my screen name is right here, Dr. Pat
Mhm.
Boulogne. My website is Health Team Network. And .com. And that has numerous pages and different ways to interact with me. And also, there's a great quiz on the front of that, on the opening page. If you scroll down, it's yes and no answers. There's 22 of them. It won't take you any
Hmm.
time at all. You can answer those questions, and then you can find out, get a ballpark idea of what's going on in your organ systems. And then then you can have we can have a talk and say like, what's the next step? Or do we have to dive deeper in one organ system than others? There's approximately 11 organ systems. And in my book, Why Are You Sick, Fat, and Tired? If somebody's interested in really chiseling that down and delving into that. It talks about, it's a workbook, guidebook, and advocating tool. So you can answer those questions. You can go to your doctor and say, I have these symptoms here, because I'll put money on it. They don't ever ask you those. I've had so many people tell me my doctor's never asked me any of these questions. And so, but it gives you your bottom line, your foundational line, and in business, people don't wait till they're in crisis, to take care of stuff. They want to be on it all the time so they don't have to be in crisis. Because that's not a fun way to run a business. And
Right.
and it takes, absolutely, it ages you for no apparent reason, for sure. That makes sense?
Yep.
It does. Well, that was some good information, Dr. Pat. It's something important to us, health and business, but oftentimes we see neglected a lot. So
Hmm.
reach out to Dr. Pat if you have any more questions. But on behalf of our sponsors, A Advanced Services and Fuse Networks, my name is Galen,
And I'm Joe.
coming at you from the underbelly of the Creative Block Studios in Seattle, Washington. Dr. Pat, thanks for joining us. And everyone, thanks for tuning in, watching this episode of the Ask Valor Masterminds podcast. Thanks, everyone. Want a slam dunk space for your next event? We're here at the Creative Block Studios in Seattle, Washington, which is also the Ask Valor Mastermind studio. Great place for product demonstrations, sales trainings. We've had our 100th episode here. Photo shoots, great for photographers, videographers.
I love the idea of having a party. Let's say you have kids and they want to play video games. Come down and rent the studio, $250. You can have a bunch of multiple screens put up in different gaming systems.
And $250 is for the whole day. We have it for a full 9-hour slot. So if you want to, for 2 hours, 4 hours, the full time, $250 flat rate with all the resources available, Wi-Fi, private space, right outside the heart of Seattle. So easy to get to for multiple people coming from all over the place. But what a great promotion. Just to the end of 2024. Check out Creative Block Seattle.